This is the first lesson of our third unit. Today we'll be doing a review of ionization. Our bell ringer today asks you to write the symbol for your favorite anion and cation and list the number of protons and electrons. Let's start by reviewing the octet rule. The octet rule simply states that elements prefer to have 8 valence electrons. When we talk about valence electrons, we're referring to the electrons that are in this outer shell. So let me go ahead and circle those. When we have a full outer shell, we say that atom is very stable because the s and the p orbitals are completely full. So ionization refers to when atoms gain or lose electrons, and they do this until there are 8 valence electrons. So in this case, if we look at sodium, sodium on the periodic table has 1 valence electron, and it's going to lose that valence electron, or rather it's going to give that valence electron to another atom that needs 1 electron to give it a complete outer shell. Let's go ahead and complete this table. So first, let's list the number of valence electrons in each group. This is extremely challenging. Group number 1, there are 1. Group 2, there are 2. 3 has 3, and so on. Next, we're going to list the number of electrons that are gained and lost. So if you have between 1 and 4 valence electrons, they are lost. So let me go ahead and fill this in. If you have between 4 and 7 valence electrons, those are gained. We're picking those up. Now 4 is unique because it can both gain and lose electrons. So now when we go back to fill in the number of electrons gained and lost, we're just going to match this up with the number of valence electrons for lost. Now if it's gaining, we want to gain until we have 8. So for 4, we need 4 electrons. For 5, we only need 3 to get 8. 6, we need 2, and then 7, we just need 1 electron. So anytime we're losing electrons, we have more protons than electrons, so our charge is going to be positive. If we are gaining electrons, we now have more electrons than protons, so our charge is going to be negative. Oops, let me go back and fix that one. All right, let's look at this first example. It says an element has 3 valence electrons. Predict the charge after ionization. So since we are going to be losing electrons, we are going to have more protons than electrons, so our charge is going to be positive 3. Predict the charge of oxygen when it ionizes. So if we look at the periodic table, oxygen has 6 valence electrons. So since it has 6, it's going to gain 2, which will give us a charge of negative 2. When calcium ionizes, it will gain or lose electrons, and how many? So calcium on the periodic table has 2 electrons. So it's going to lose those electrons. When bromine ionizes, it will gain or lose, and then how many electrons. So bromine has 7 valence electrons. Since it has 7, it needs to gain 1 to get 8. Ions of magnesium, oxygen, and nitrogen will all form electrons like which noble gas? Well, let's see. Magnesium has 2 valence electrons, so it's going to lose those. It'll have a +2 charge. Oxygen has 6 valence electrons, so it's going to gain 2 electrons. Nitrogen has 5, so it's going to lose 3. Sorry, it's going to gain 3. So let's see, magnesium will have a total of 10 electrons. Oxygen will have a total of 10 electrons. And nitrogen will have a total of 10 electrons. So all 3 of these, if we look on the periodic table, number 10 is neon. So they're not changing to become neon, but rather they are picking up extra electrons, so they have the same number of electrons as neon, which is 10. Remember, changing the protons will actually change what element is, but simply changing the number of electrons gives you an ion. All right, in this 6th example, let's go ahead and see what we have. So let's begin by counting up the number of electrons. So in this case, there are 17 electrons, which makes me think chlorine. Now, chlorine has 7 valence electrons. And if it has 7 valence electrons, it is going to gain 1 electron to get that 8. And the question says, would most likely form. So we've got 17 electrons showing, which indicates chlorine. And if it's chlorine, it has 7 valence electrons. It's going to gain 1 electron, so it's going to have a negative charge. So for today, you're going to go on the website, ChemThink. The link is posted on Google Classroom. Depending on which class you're in, when you go to register, you're going to either put in this ID or this ID. On the back side of the ionization notes is kind of a fill in the blank to go with the activity. There are also some questions that you'll answer to help reinforce the concepts that are taught in the activity. When you're finished, there's a review worksheet I'd like you to complete. And then if you are completely finished early, I'd like you to go and watch the posted Khan Academy Lewis structure video. Get like a head start on tomorrow's lesson. The exit ticket today asks, what is the formula for this ionic crystal? To complete the exit ticket, you will need to complete the ChemThink activity. Otherwise, you're not going to know how to do this. So once you complete that, come back and complete the exit ticket.